Welcome to Shield Maidens, Women of the Norse World, the podcast that celebrates the remarkable women of the Viking Age. From fierce warriors and powerful queens to wise seers and cunning goddesses, these women left an indelible mark on history. Join authors Johanna Wittenberg and K.S. Barton each month as we explore the stories, achievements, and impact of Norse women. Welcome to Shield Maidens, Women of the Norse World. This is episode 34, in which Johanna and I recap our year of 2025 and look forward to 2026. I'm K.S. Barton, author of the Norse Family Trilogy, in which a young Viking woman and a Viking warrior are caught in a deadly blood feud between two brothers. And with me is Johanna Wittenberg. Hi, Johanna.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. So I'm Johanna Wittenberg, author of the Norse Women series, which is the story of Queen Åsa. She was a real Norse queen who lived and ruled alone in the early 9th century, the dawn of the Viking Age.
Well, okay, we've almost made it through 2025.
Phew.
Yeah, it was quite a year in a lot of respects. So
Yeah, we had some great guests on.
yeah, we really did. I actually made a list of some of our guests, and yeah, we had Nancy Marie Brown, and we had Heather Pringle, Melanie Karsak, Megan
Pamela
Formanek,
Toller
Pamela Toller.
and Nina Niskanen.
Yeah, that's right. I was like pausing because I was trying to remember how to pronounce her name.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Margaret Havgar. And then,
Yes, she was really a blast.
yeah, she was fun.
And we'll
And
be
then
having her back again next year or
that's right.
whenever she
Well, when
finishes
she's
her
finishes.
project. Might
Yeah.
not be next year.
Yeah. Well,
Although she's
fingers
made a lot of
crossed.
progress, she sounded like she was getting close.
Yeah. Yeah. Fingers crossed for her sake, too, that she can
Yeah.
finish that up quickly and get that PhD under her belt.
And she's going to publish her dissertation as a book. So that's really exciting because I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah.
It'll have lots of great pictures of the
Yeah.
Oseberg tapestries, and I'm so excited about it.
And of course, we were also on the Vikingology podcast,
Mhm.
and that was really fun. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and CJ Adrian, the author on there, he moved to France this year.
that's right.
So I've been watching his Facebook posts. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and didn't he recently get signed with a traditional publisher? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Um, let's see, what was the name of that publisher again? It's starts with a V. I can't remember. I
yeah.
was just looking at it the other day. Vinci. That's it.
Oh, okay.
As in
That's not.
Leonardo da Vinci, but it's just
Oh, okay.
Vinci Press.
Vinci
Yeah.
Press.
Yeah.
I haven't
So
heard of that one. So
yeah, no,
that's exciting for him.
yeah, it is. So and I know that Nancy Marie Brown is going to be leading another Icelandic tour
Oh,
this
yeah, I
year.
heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She does. I think she does that every year. Uh, Heather Pringle was talking about Heather and Pamela Toller both were talking about writing fiction. So I haven't heard from them, either one of them, about it, but I want to follow up with them and find out if they really are, I mean, it's pretty hard to switch between fiction and nonfiction.
It would be. Well, I do know Pamela is working on a new like a new nonfiction book about
Oh,
someone, so she's probably going to be really busy with that.
yeah,
So,
no doubt.
mhm.
That's right. You see her all the time because you're on a writing prompt with
Yeah,
her.
we both belong to an online writing group that meets every morning. So, yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's a great way to
Yeah,
get
we meet
yourself going.
for an hour and a half every morning.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
And there's literally somebody there every single morning. I think people have been there on like every holiday morning. Someone is there. We've been
Wow.
doing it since November of 2020. It
Oh,
started for
beginning of the pandemic.
yeah, the big for NaNoWriMo. It started
hmm
like to do it for that, and then the group of us who were doing it way back in November of 2020. I was there from the very beginning. We all enjoyed it so much that we just decided to keep going until we decided to stop, and we're still going strong. There's still a core group of us who have been around for since the beginning, and some people have been around for years, and we've formed like a nice little community of writers. So,
That's so important because, since writing itself is so solitary, having that
mhm.
community is just indispensable.
It
I don't
really
think
is.
I couldn't get along without the critique group that I'm in, and we've been together for many, many years. Let's see, I think I started in 2016,
Mm,
and so I'm one of the plank holders, but there are several members that actually were there before me, so that are still around, and it just getting each other's opinions, and we have
mhm.
new members come in all the time too, but it's great to have somebody who's been familiar with your work from the very beginning.
Yeah, I have one friend. She's the one who brought me into a critique group, and the members have changed a couple of times since then. But for the past, since before the pandemic, we've had a core little group in our critique group. We're not really doing much right now because one person went back to school, and other people are really busy with their jobs and kids, and so we're not meeting quite as regularly, but we're all still really good friends, and we're all still like, we have a group chat that we do and keep in touch and talk about writing and anything else, what latest thing we're watching. And so, yeah, it's been really great. And then I have one person who I work with closely. She and I meet every week, and we've become really good friends. And she's an author too. Her name is Catherine Spader. She writes her books that she has out are in Anglo-Saxon Germany.
Wow, that
Yeah,
sounds interesting.
yeah, it is. And she's writing some kind of like the stuff she's working on now is more like fairy tale and
Hmm.
kind of stuff. So it's kind of neat, fantasy fairy tales. And so she and I we work a lot, and plus we become really good friends. And so yeah, it really helps to have people around you who understand what it's like to be a writer.
Yeah, because you just can't explain it
Yeah,
to
I noticed.
anybody who doesn't write. It's like they're not going to get
Right.
it.
No, no.
Why are you just staring at that screen? Why are you pacing around the room? Why are you running up and down the stairs?
Yeah. Yeah, early last week, I woke up really early, and I was just lying in bed, and it was dark, and we kept our house cold, so I had a bunch of blankets on me. And I just it was like this huge like download into my brain of all this stuff I
Oh,
wanted to write. I had ideas from chapters I had already written, and that I needed to add some stuff. And then I had like just so much stuff that I want to do. And I wrote like 4 or 5 chapters, like 12,000 words in 1 week.
oh my
Because
goodness.
it was
That's
just like,
incredible.
it was, it was just like those gifs of like the, the Jim Carrey character just typing super, super fast or the little cat that types super, super fast. That was me last week.
Well, I've done a little experimenting with dictation, and
Oh,
it's very strange. It really is. I mean, I think I could get used to it, but when you're so trained to be at the keyboard, it is hard because it's just how it turns your brain on. Your brain sit down at the keyboard and your brain gets turned on in a certain
hmm.
way.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard there's a pretty steep learning curve for
Mm,
for
yeah.
dictation.
Yeah, I've practiced with it, like keeping a journal. That's a good way to practice
Mm-hmm.
with it. So,
I've
but
used like my phone's voice recorder, just an
mhm.
app, simple app, and like if
Well,
I'm out somewhere, yeah.
Word has a pretty good one now.
Oh, does it?
Yep, used to be
Okay.
terrible, but they bought Dragon.
Oh, okay. Of course they
So
did.
now all of a sudden they have great technology. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I've done some journaling through the voice recorder after our trip to Japan when last year when I was it's called an uchi deshi at the dojo when you live and train there and you work and everything.
Oh,
Yeah, when I got back, I wanted to chronicle it, but I didn't feel like sitting down and typing, and I didn't want to write by hand because my handwriting has gotten terrible. I was like, oh, why don't I just dictate it?
Why
And
not?
yeah, so, and that way I could walk around while I was doing it. And so for that, it's been great.
Oh, I know Octavia Randolph, she dictates and she
Oh,
just
that's
swears by it.
right.
And she says that, once you get used to it, it makes you very, very productive. And I've heard that from other
Hmm.
authors too. So it might be worth looking into.
Yeah.
So what have you been working on this year? I mean, we've been having lots of guests, but we haven't heard I know you're working on a set, a not a trilogy, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I finished the first book or the first, yeah, the end of last year, and it's been with beta readers, and it's with the last beta reader right now. I told her she can take her time because I'm working on the second book, and I really need to know how it's all going to end up. I know you just write.
Oh yeah. But I get stuck. I do get
Yeah.
stuck. But I just, something fun occurs to me or something interesting, and then I just get into that and it somehow transforms itself into a story. Not sure how that happens, but
Yeah. Well, it's obviously working for you. But I did that. Yeah, I had that experience this past week when I just had one of my point of view characters just all of a sudden, like, I had not expected this to happen to him. And I'm like, okay. And I stopped for a second and I went, is this where I want this to go? And then I stopped again and went, just go for it. Just go with it.
exactly.
Just ride the wave, you know? So, and it's been really fun. And I'm just really like putting the screws on him. It's really kind of, I feel so mean. I feel like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, like excellent when I torture these poor people. Not like literally torturing them, but yeah.
Well,
So
the
I'm,
problem
I'm
is you forget that they're not real. I
and
mean,
I
it's
really
hard
like
sometimes.
this character. He's one of my favorites. He's a good guy. And I'm like, oh, poor thing. But
Oh,
this is what
well.
we do. So yeah, I don't know, I'm probably halfway through the second book in the trilogy. And once I think I get that down and I have like a good idea where I'm going with the third one, then I'll go ahead and release the first one. And
And you said this has more magic in it,
oh,
right?
it does have more magic in it. That was one of the
Hmm,
things I was just
interesting.
exploring this past week. Like, what else can I bring into this? So,
And it's surprising when you go back into your research, things crop up and
mhm.
it's like, whoa, okay, yeah, I can use that.
Well, and I even was thinking about like what okay, so if this what I did to this guy is kind of messed with his head,
Uh-oh.
and I'm like, well, what could come from that? Like he could
Oh,
something could happen and maybe he thinks it's anyway. So I'm just been like, what am I going to do with this? Since that's been kind of fun. And
so and then you got a short story accepted into Flame Tree Press into their Odin. Was it Odin
yeah, that was the Odin one. That was last
anthology?
year. That was
Was it last year?
2024.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Wow. Oh, time just goes by so
I
fast.
know, I know. Yeah, that was really fun doing that.
Yeah. Well, and now I have two. You recommended it to me. They had a Valkyrie edition that's going to come out in 2026. So I sent in a short story and got accepted. So now we're
Nice.
both going to be in anthologies.
Yeah. Well,
And they have the
congratulations.
best thank you. They have
Yeah,
the
they
best
do.
covers. They're just really fun. Yeah, and
Hmm.
I don't write a lot of short stories. So, and when I do, they're always backstory of
Hmm.
character in my novels. And so this is backstory for Helga, who's the eldest of the five sisters that became
Nice.
shield maidens in my book. So,
Oh, very fun.
yeah.
Yeah, most of my short stories are like within my world with
Hmm.
characters either we know or they're somehow connected to my characters. That's usually what I write. But yeah, the Odin one was totally different though. It was because Odin's not a character.
Well, he is in your one book, the A Deal with a Moon.
Oh, I don't, why do
He's
I
one of your
forget about
characters.
that? He is a character in that book.
Yes,
Oh
he
my
is.
gosh. I kind of forget about that book. It's a
This is a
standalone
standalone. It's a
and
fun book,
it's kind
though.
of short. It was fun to write.
I bet.
That book I set myself a challenge. I wanted to write a book that I followed the hero's journey.
Oh,
And
okay. That was the structure of
that's
it.
how I structured it. I was deliberately following the hero's journey. So when I'd get stuck, I'd say, okay, where am I at? Oh, we need to do this now. And so I'd come up with something.
Yeah.
And you're working on some different stuff.
Yeah. So, my last book was The Irish Harper, and that sort of started things out where Rangild and Murchad had to bring this Irish harper back to Ireland. They made a promise to Queen Osa to do so. So they took him back and had a few adventures while they were on the way. And I kind of in that book, some seeds were planted for the next book, which so often happens. And I don't, it's nothing to do with me. It just happens. They're there. And
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, so that's the next book. And then my mind starts working on it. And so this next book is almost all Ireland.
Mm,
And it's
nice.
all to do with Irish mythology, the Tuatha De Danann, who are
Hmm.
became the fairies. But they were real people and they built all those megalithic monuments that are all over Ireland. And I had no idea how many there were. We think of Newgrange as the main one because it's the most restored and the most visited, which its original name was Brunaboyne. Uh, and there's a whole complex there of three different, there's Knowth, Douth, and Brunaboyne in that one area. But there are others all over Ireland in various states of disrepair. And so I did a lot of research on that. And some of them are oriented towards each other, as well as being oriented towards, the sunset on
Mm,
the solstice, winter solstice, and things like that. And it's like, how did they build them? How did they last so long? What were they really for? Nobody knows. So it's
yeah.
just really interesting. And
Hmm.
then to think of bringing those together with Vikings,
Yeah.
and we do know that, as we were talking about earlier, we do know that the Vikings did have something to do with these monuments, but we don't really know what. So
Mm,
interesting.
it is neat.
And then their system of magic,
Mm,
there are similarities between Norse magic and Irish magic, but there are a lot of differences. And their pantheon, the Irish pantheon, those people who are considered gods were very, very ancient people.
mm,
And what's so fascinating is some of the archaeology has shown that, there were different types of humans living in Ireland. Obviously, other places too, but in Ireland, there's traces of other humanoids. They're not
huh.
necessarily Homo sapiens.
Really?
Yeah,
I
so
didn't know that.
so these things like could give rise to
Mm.
some of these legends, like they were real. Maybe they had, I don't know. It's so exciting. I just can hardly stand it.
Yeah, that's why we do it, isn't it? It's for to get excited
I've
about something like that.
really had my head in fairyland this year.
That's funny. You've had your head in fairyland, and I've, well, other than my Vikings, I've had my head in 1970s, early 1980s world of rock. I've been,
Tell me about that, because I saw that in your newsletter. I read your newsletter and you were talking about so tell me a little more about that
well,
project.
I started working a few years ago. I started working on a series that takes place in the 1980s. And I've written two books in that, but then all of a sudden, and they're coming of age romances from a young woman's point of view. And but I decided I wanted to write a book about an all-girl band. So, like, I know the Runaways,
Oh,
and it'd be, and I haven't quite decided what kind of girl band this was going to be, but I was like, I've got to write a book about an all-girl rock band. So, I've been doing like tons of research in my spare time, reading memoirs and watching videos and documentaries, and it's been really fun.
sounds like it.
Yeah.
So you haven't actually started the book yet, or
I haven't
have you?
started the book yet. I'm still
You're in the
doing I'm
research stage.
procrastinating, and I'm like at
Yeah.
some I'm like I have this huge list of books to get like through interlibrary loan, and I just keep adding to the list, and I'm at the point where I'm like now I'm just procrastinating with the research. I need to get on with it.
Well, and
So,
Kristen Hanna wrote a lot of books set in that, several books set in that time period, in
mm.
like I'm trying to remember, The Great Alone was, no, these are not women rock and roll people, but it's
Right.
just,
Yeah. I
I'm
read The
just
Great
talking
Alone. That was a
about
good
the
book.
flavor of the time period.
Mm-hmm.
And she was really masterful at bringing an era alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of one of her, and I can hardly stand to read some of her books because they're just such tear jerkers. But if you really want the ambience, she's pretty
Yeah.
good at that.
And I've even been going back and watching like old TV shows from the time just to be
Oh
reminded of like what people were wearing back then and how we did our
yeah,
hair. People did their hair and just stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd forgotten about all like the skin tight like Jordache jeans and it's like around
yeah.
1980 and it's just stuff like that. And like that's been kind of fun too. But now I just have to write the book. But when I was first decided I wanted to write this, I wanted it to be really, I was like, well, it'll be fun. But now I see just how hard it would be for an all-girl band in the late
Mm,
70s. All the sexism and
God,
and
yeah.
just these men in power just being gross creeps and like
We've almost forgotten that, but
Mhm.
now it's
Yeah,
sort of coming back to haunt us a little bit.
I was reading. I was reading Pat Benatar's memoir, and she was saying when she would go to radio stations to like do an interview, sometimes the hosts would ask her to sit on their lap and stuff.
Oh
It's just
God.
gross. Like, oh my gosh. So, and
Yeah,
this was
things
probably
really have changed. I mean,
yeah, and this was probably around 1979 or so, and
mhm.
yeah, so when I started thinking about that, I was like, okay, it's not just going to be a lighthearted romp. These girls are going to experience some difficulties.
Yeah, there were a lot of difficulties to experience back then.
Hmm. So, but that's okay. I'm good
Yep,
with the darkness.
yep.
That's why I like Vikings.
Yeah, well, you got to have a little bit of that.
Yeah,
Um, Although I tend towards happy endings
me
in
too.
my books, and I don't mind making my characters suffer, but I do like happy endings. And,
I do too. Yeah.
and sometimes it's not easy to bring things around that way, but
Yeah. And even sometimes it's a bittersweet,
mhm,
happy, kind of a bittersweet ending. Like things are okay, but they've lost people along the way, or,
right.
those kinds of things. Because you just can't write about Vikings and not have people die. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, but I think sometimes, the mindset that there has to be bad things or that there has to
mm,
be a price. I don't always agree with that.
mm,
I don't think it's always the case. It's sort of almost a rule, but
hmm.
but
Well,
why? Who
I
made
meant,
that rule?
yeah, I meant people dying because people died in the Viking
Well,
Age. Like,
they did
women
die.
dying in child, like I had a character who
Oh yeah.
died in childbirth or, things
Hmm.
like that. Those kinds of things. Like, nobody comes out of that unscathed.
That is true. That is true. That's true. But I'm just talking about, like, it's almost an unwritten rule of certain things have to be paid for. There has to be a price, and I'm
Mm.
not sure who made that rule, but it
Hmm.
It seems to be almost an unwritten rule. And, people can skate. It happens. We
Yeah,
see
yeah.
it in real life,
Yeah, that's true. At least for a time, at least
at
when
least for a time.
they're young. I don't think anybody skates all the way through because there's loss
Probably
and
not.
prices to be paid at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even if it's a parent as you age or that kind of thing. So you're not nobody is going to get out of it
We
totally
don't get out of it
scot-free.
alive, that's for sure.
Well, I do. Yeah, there's some battle scars along the way, some
For
pain and
sure.
uh, and I think, mentioning that is I used to write a lot when I was younger, and in a way, I'm really glad that I didn't get really serious about it until I was in my 40s because I feel like I'd lived a little bit by then,
Hmm.
experienced a lot more that I wouldn't have if I was like 23 years old. Like, not that people who were that young can't write great stuff. I have an author who I like some of her stuff a lot, and she's not even 30 yet, or maybe she's about 30. Like, she wrote some really cool stuff when she was young, but I still feel like, for me at least, I needed to have some of that experience before I really got serious about writing.
Oh, that's totally how I was. I tried writing when I was younger, and I found it very frustrating. I wrote a
Mm.
lot of poetry when I was young, but as far as writing stories, and certainly I did write a sock drawer novel when I was in my 30s. But oh my gosh, like you said, I just needed to live some more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like we had our guest Megan Formanek, she's quite young and
Yeah.
she has written several books and they're very mature. But it's
Yeah.
just,
True.
I think it's just the personality. When I was younger, I was a painter, I was a watercolorist, and that
Mm.
was perfect for me because it was, I won't say mindless, it's more like you're not using that part of your intellect that you use to write.
Mm-hmm.
It's more emotionally engaging and less I don't know, less structured, I guess. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a watercolorist, you do have to learn physics and you have to learn perspective, geometry, that sort of thing. But they're a sideline and,
Mm.
just another skill that you pick up. Whereas with writing, it engages a different sort of part of your brain, really
Mm-hmm.
different. And it's really fun, but it took me a while to get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
It really did. It was hard, very frustrating.
Was it?
Hmm. Yeah, it was. And of course, when I first started writing, there wasn't as much there wasn't as much information about how to do it.
Yeah, true. There's so
Lots of
much now,
grammar, but
especially.
as structure was my big issue.
Mm,
Like you said, the hero's journey, that was those things weren't really available when I started writing.
mm. I did know about the hero's journey before I started writing because I'd studied it a lot, at
Hmm.
least in like old mythology and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I did know about that. But like I've since read The Virgin's Promise and Save the Cat writes a novel and some of those other
Yeah,
things. And
there is a
occasionally I'll
lot
use
out there.
one of them. Hmm. I've
Hmm.
even read Romancing the Beat, which is all about how to write romance and Story Grid and
Oh yeah, and I
all
like
kinds of other things.
story physics. I like that one.
Oh, I've never heard of that one.
Story engineering and story physics. I think those are the titles. Maybe I've got the titles wrong, but anyway, it's physics and engineering, and they're very more, I don't know, they're more structural, phys
Mm-hmm.
and those really helped me a lot when I first started writing. If I got stuck, I would just go
Hmm.
back to some of these books and like they have exercises in them. So I do some of their writing exercises and it would get my juices flowing again. I don't get stuck like that anymore. Now I get stuck with um, plot story solutions that I
Yeah.
just have to let them come to me. I mean, I like right now I'm waiting for something from above to
Yeah. I get that.
to inspire me. And it'll come. It just sometimes it just takes a while to develop.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Well, and sometimes I was writing one of my Helgi books, which had a lot more action than some of my others. And I got stuck about like at the end of, say, like Act Two, about maybe three-quarters of the way in or so. And I was like, I don't know what to do next. And so I got out Save the Cat writes a novel, and I was kind of looking through her beats, and I was like, oh, this is the part where the heroes regroup and they kind of figure out what their next move is going to be. And so that helped me kind of get unstuck. Like, okay, yeah, this
Hmm.
is a perfect, I can have them do this right here. And so once I did that, I got unstuck through there, and then I knew where I needed to go to end it. So sometimes referring back to those things is helpful.
Hmm. Absolutely, yeah. Although I find them less helpful now than I did. But I still kind of do different things, use different methods to kind of inch myself along. But I've done it enough now, on 8 books that
Hmm.
I'm in the middle of book 8. You know, I really kind of know what's going on. It just means sometimes I just need to, let my brain
Stop.
work on
Hmm.
it. Yep. And so but there's always little busy work. The way I write, I write a pretty brief novel, and then I have to go back in and flesh out areas where I've been too brief. So I can do that while I'm waiting for the big answer.
Yeah.
A big
Those often,
answer from above.
yeah, those, or from your subconscious or your
That's
unconscious or
totally where it's
whatever.
coming
Yeah,
from.
that's
Yeah.
what happened to me that one morning. I hadn't been writing like that much. And then all of a sudden, also I also belong to I don't belong, it's not like a group you belong to, but once a month, there's a writing group here in town that meets in person at one of the libraries. And the last time I went, I had asked because I wasn't writing dual timeline, but I have two characters in one place and two point of view characters in one place and then two point of view characters in another place. And I was like, what do people do about dual timelines and things like that? And somebody said she writes each one of them separately. So she'll write
Mhm.
one timeline, have that whole arc finished, and then she writes the other one. So I decided to try that. And when I did, that's when it all opened up. I was like, oh, I'll just write this whole plot line in this place with these two characters. And then when I'm done with that, then I'll jump back to the other one, which actually needs me to a little more thought on my part because it's a little more complicated. It's kind of new stuff and a new place and new characters. And so yeah, and then I can just write that one all the way through and I don't have to jump back and forth like, okay, what are they doing over here now? And so that actually opened a lot up for me to divide those two plot lines. The trick is going to be to weave them back together when I'm done. Like make sure I have times kind
I
of
did that
syncing up.
last year, and
Did
it
you?
wasn't a dual timeline. It was just two different, one was Rangil, the other was Osa, and they had two separate adventures
Mm-hmm.
that were not really related, except for that they occurred simultaneously, but they
Mm-hmm.
weren't related. And I was really in a quandary. I mean, I didn't know what to do because it's like, do I have two separate books here? And I really did in a lot of ways. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I wrote them as two
Mm-hmm.
separate. And then I did weave them back together. And oddly enough, I mean, I was really nervous that it wasn't going
Mm-hmm.
to work out, but it really did because,
Good.
you can tell the dramatic moment when you want to switch to something else, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
and then, it worked. It really worked, but it was quite a risk.
Yeah. Well, and you also don't want to spend too much time in one place because then people
Right.
will forget, readers will forget about what happened in
Yeah.
the other story. So yeah, there's a balancing act.
Yeah, this book I'm just in one basic one basic story, but there are quite a few points of view in this story. So, but I'm used to that. I've been doing that a lot. I do
Hmm.
switch points of view. I have certain characters so it's that part's working. It's mainly some of this new drama with the Irish magic. It's very fun, but
That's neat.
yeah, I
Yeah.
have to do a lot of research, and there's an awful lot of information that's not really accurate.
Mm,
So I have to
what
really
a
dig a
shock.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I actually kind of like about writing in my two 1980s books is this just one POV, first person, in deep with these young girls or young women. They're about 18. They're like seniors in high school. So, and I didn't have to do a ton of research. I mean, obviously I had to do some, but it was a time period I lived, and so there was a lot that I just remembered. Like the most recent one, the girl was walking through like a kind of like an outdoor mall, and she noticed there was a help wanted sign in the store. Well, this was 1985, so she just walked in the door, filled out an application, talked to the manager right there, and he was like, "Sure, you're hired." And it was super easy, and it was like, it is not like that anymore.
Not anymore. Oh my gosh, so many things were so much easier.
Yeah, and everything's
Yeah,
online now. I mean, I work at the library. I don't do it much anymore, but people, had to come into the library to use the computers and the Wi-Fi
right.
to fill out all these applications. And some of these applications were just ridiculously involved for what the jobs are. So I don't know. It was just fun to just throw that in there about this 18-year-old girl just walking in and 30 minutes later she has a job.
Oh, I know. It happened to me so many times because,
Yeah.
all through high school,
Mhm.
and even college, I was doing part-time work, part-time jobs in college too. So,
Yeah, that's how I got my jobs. I just was on a whim. Like
yep.
I was like freshman in college, and I went over to the record and video store, and I just applied, and they're like, "Sure, okay." You start,
Remember the help wanted signs in the
yeah,
windows?
yeah, yeah. So that's fun doing that. And I know some people hate writing in first person, and because they're so limited on what the person can experience and see and know. But
Yeah.
I actually find that constraint almost freeing. Like I don't need to know what this person's thinking. All I need to know is what my character's thinking and wants and needs, and what she thinks other people are thinking. And so I find that fun. But I also am really enjoying the stuff I'm working on right now. I have four main POVs in this book right now. Plus I have the occasional villain POV. So
Well, I know some writers that when they try to write in third person, it's just very stilted and
mm,
unnatural. And if they switch to first person, all of a sudden their writing just flows. It's so much better. And it's just the way your mind works.
hmm
Because I have to switch points of view so often, I can't write in first person, but I have written some short stories, a couple of short stories in first person. And
Yeah, my Helgi the Marked books, I had originally written them in third person because they're related to my Norse family
hmm
trilogy, and that's written in third person. And I got to the end of the first book and I realized, this isn't quite working for me. And so I went back and I tried it like a chapter or two in first person. And like you said,
it
it freed
flows.
it freed something in me. So I had to go back and rewrite it in first person. And it's not just changing the pronouns, rewriting in first person involves a
Yeah.
lot more than
Oh
just
my goodness.
changing he to I. There's a lot more like interior stuff you put in the character's head. But
And
yeah,
I think that's what's so freeing for some writers is that brings that character to life more.
yeah, yeah.
It also puts the reader in that, and maybe the writer too, in that time period better than
Mm,
third person. I mean, I truly believe that, and I read a lot of historical fiction that is in first person.
mm,
So, I really think that's why, because it it lets you enter that time period more, both the
mm,
reader and the author.
hmm Yeah, I know some readers don't like first person. Most of the historical fiction I read seems like it's in third person.
Oh, that's
It's
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. No, I've read a lot of first person. I'm thinking about Philippa Gregory. I used to read her quite a
Oh.
bit, and she wrote first person.
Mm.
The one thing that drives me a little bit crazy is when they write first person present tense.
Oh, you don't like that?
I don't like I mean, I get used to it, of course, but present tense kind of drives me a little bit crazy. Um,
It's pretty popular right now, so I've
I
gotten
know
used
it
to
is. I read
it.
a lot of it, and
Yeah.
I'll be reading along and I'll go, "This is present tense." Oh yeah. But like you said, you get used to it, I mean, you
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
And I guess it supposedly makes things more raises the tension. It
Mm,
raises the tension.
hmm.
Um, it makes things more immediate.
Yeah, I think so. I wonder if the Hunger Games made that popular because the Hunger Games
Probably.
is in first
Yeah,
is present tense, and I wonder if that maybe kind of started some
it
people writing
probably
in that
did.
because those were awfully popular books. So
Yes, they still are actually.
yeah, I
Yeah.
reread those last year,
Oh
and
yeah.
maybe it was the year before, and because I absolutely love the first book. I just it's one of my favorites, and I thought, oh, I'll just read The Hunger Games. And then, I finished it, and I'm like, well, no, I kind of want to read Catching Fire. I didn't, oh, I shouldn't say I read them all. I didn't read the third one because I don't like the third one,
Hmm.
but I do like
Mockingjay, is that what the third one is?
yeah, but I do really like the first two. So I reread those. Didn't take long. Didn't take much of my reading time to reread them. They're not that long. They're pretty fast paced.
What I reread in the past year was Mary Stewart's Merlin series. So
Oh,
that
wow.
is from the 70s. I mean, that's when it was written. And she was mostly a romance writer,
Mm,
gothic romances. And my mother read them like crazy. And then she got a hold of this Merlin series. And I was pretty young, but I wasn't too young to read them. And we just glommed onto those. So
hmm.
I found them in in a book sale, all three
Fun.
of them in one, one unit, one book. And so I grabbed it and I started reading it. And oh my gosh, she could write. That
Really?
whole it was more than a trilogy because she wrote a trilogy, The Crystal Cave, The Hollow Hills, and I think the next one was like The Last Enchantment. And then she wrote one more later called The Wicked Day. But and they were first person. She was
Mm.
writing first person as Merlin. So
Oh,
she was
okay.
starting out as a young boy. But oh my goodness, they were good.
Oh, fun. I
They
love it
really,
when you reread a book and you actually love it. I've had
it's
that.
just as, yeah, as
Yeah,
good as you
sometimes I
remembered
reread
it.
books and I'm like, this isn't
Not
as good
always
as
the
I
case.
remember.
Those were great. Those were
That's
awesome. So
fun.
I had
Yeah.
forgotten. And then I grabbed a few of her other books and they just weren't, because they were, like I said, they were gothic romances
Mm.
that were really incredibly popular. But they just weren't as gripping as this
Mm.
Merlin trilogy was so gripping. It really was. And because she wrote in the first person, she became that person.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
That's neat.
yeah, it
Yeah, I was
was.
just thinking about some of the historical fiction I read recently, and I don't World War II is not a time period that I'm all that interested
Yeah.
in reading about. But I came across one of Kate Quinn's
Hmm.
books, and it was called Diamond Eye, I think is the name of the
Yes,
book. And
the
it's
diamond
about,
eye, the Russian sharpshooter.
I think she's Ukrainian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was an
But you're right,
assassin.
she was Ukrainian.
Yeah, and I was like, this sounds interesting. So I read it and I really enjoyed it. And then I read the other one of hers where she wrote about the night witches, the Russian
Hmm.
bomber women who, would
Yes.
bomb the Nazis at night. And I was like, well, that's cool. And I really enjoyed that. Well, what was that called? The Huntress.
Yeah.
And then I just now finished The Rose Code, which is about the women in Bletchley Park who were code
Hmm.
breakers and stuff. And so that was
Did you
fun.
read her first one? I think it was set in World War One, the Alice Network.
Oh, I haven't read this. These are the first three I've read of hers.
Okay, so that Alice Network, I believe it takes place mostly in World War One,
Oh,
but that's
okay.
the one that really skyrocketed
Mm,
her career. It was the first one of her 20th century books because
okay.
she had always written ancient uh,
Yeah.
Rome, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
ancient
she has
Rome.
Ancient Rome, and she has a series about the Borgias, I think, too.
Oh, okay. I haven't read
Is
those.
it the Borgias? Maybe. I haven't read it. But yeah, and she wrote in a way I was like, "Oh, this really appeals to me." It's like these strong women who are smart, and there's also some love stories, and I just it was like appealed to me in many fronts.
Well, and she really mastered the dual timeline. In some of those
Hmm.
books, the dual timeline is especially The Huntress is a dual timeline.
Hmm.
Um,
The Rose Code, she goes back and forth. It's only a few years, but it's
yeah,
like you have the present, which is in 1947, that revolves around Princess Elizabeth's wedding
right.
to Philip, and then back 6 years, or 6 or 7 years to when they were working as code breakers. So yeah,
And The Huntress was also, it was like the 50s after World War
right,
II and then
right,
World War II.
yeah.
Yeah, they were
Diamond
excellent books.
Diamond died. Yeah, Diamond. I had a dual timeline too.
Yeah, I think all of her books
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
uh-huh. But they're not huge jumps.
Mm-mm.
That one wasn't a big jump either. It was, yeah. So
But they
yeah.
were a way to increase heighten the
Hmm.
suspense,
Hmm.
especially The Huntress. That one,
Yeah,
that was
that was.
very suspenseful because that woman was, she was still alive. She was still at large. And
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, that was good. So I really enjoyed those, reading
Yes.
those over this past year. Yeah, because World War II is not my jam, but
Mm-mm, me neither. But
she made it interesting.
well, there's also the one code name Helena or Helene, and that is a nonfiction actually
Mm.
that is written by an author who does a lot of historical fiction, but it's not a lot of it is not fiction. It's nonfiction. It's based on reality. So
Mm.
Codename Helena, it's historical fiction based on the true story of a real Australian spy who was highly decorated in World War II.
Huh.
And she's written several other books, not necessarily World War II, but they're all different time periods.
Hmm.
And many of them are based on real people,
Hmm. Hmm.
but they're fictionalized.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
Can you hear my dog snoring?
No, is your dog snoring?
Yeah.
No, I can't hear him at all.
He's lying on the floor next to me and he's snoring. I didn't think it would get through the mic, but I didn't know if you could hear this weird sound coming
No,
from my side.
it's funny with that mic, really,
Yeah,
there's been a couple
directional
other
mics.
times when, yeah, they're nice.
Yeah, directional mics are a nice invention
Indeed.
for snoring dogs.
So next year I'll be publishing my next book in April
You
for
are
sure.
so good at getting out a book a year, and I'm just like, well, I haven't done
Well, the
anything in a
timeline
couple of
slipped a little
years.
bit. Last year it was March. Now it's going to be April, but it just takes a little bit. I gave myself a little more time for my revision because
Mm,
I send it through a developmental editor at a very early stage, and I also send it through my critique group for a beta at a very early stage, and they poke holes in it right and left. So then I have to revise it. And last year I didn't leave myself enough time, and I was just frantic. So this year I
yeah.
gave myself an extra month, and it will be done. I mean,
Hmm.
it's kind of the fun part because I'm adding in some fun things, but they're a little tricky. They're a little hard to write, but I'm past that. In the middle of the book, I get stuck.
Hmm.
Sometimes I have to just sit there for a month and
Yeah, I do
not know
too.
where I'm going.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I did publish a book this year. It was just in the 80s, but it wasn't a
Mhm.
Viking book.
Well, so you have
So
tend to have several projects going at once, and I only have one. I'm very single-minded.
it's the ADHD. I'm serious. I think it is. Sometimes I'm just like, I can't be in this world right now. Let's go do something different. I need some, was it novelty? So
No pun intended. Novelty.
So I'm hoping that the first book in the while I'm working on book two and thinking about book three, I'll get my first book back from my beta reader and do any of her, pay attention to her feedback, do any revisions on that, get it to my proofreader, and do all that kind of stuff, get cover while I'm finishing up book two, and so hopefully by the end of the year,
Well,
2026, I'll
good.
have that one done. So yeah, I still got to talk to my cover designer and do all that stuff. The book is
There's
probably
all,
going to be called The Lost Circle
oh, I
because
like that
an
title.
ancient stone circle plays an important part in the story because I love stone circles.
Hmm. Me too.
So yeah.
Well, the age of some of them, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're literally thousands of years old. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And, some of the megalithic structures in Ireland are in very good condition, even though they're 5,000 years old. They're still
That surprises
watertight.
that surprises me because it's so wet there.
It's the way they were built.
Mm,
So, like Newgrange and some of the others, they have corbelled dome ceilings, and they're dry fitted. They don't use mortar, but the stones were, fitted together in such a way that they were watertight. And
mm,
also, I was reading that there's some places where they've carved channels or made channels for water to run off, to keep things dry. So,
mm,
those architects, those Neolithic architects really knew what they were doing, and that just stuns me. And then the size of those stones,
yeah.
huge. We still don't know for sure how they transported them. That's so interesting to me. I love it.
Yeah.
But I like to get really immersed in a world. And my first few books, I did start the next book while I was doing the editorial process, but I don't do that anymore. I just stay focused on one book from beginning to end, and I stay completely focused in that world, just immersed. And
Mm,
maybe it's the older I get, the easier it is for me to do that.
hmm. Yeah, I
I'm
can't do that.
less bouncy than I was. I'm less easily
Yeah.
distracted.
I don't like the editing process much. It's my least
Mm.
favorite part of the whole
I like the
process.
editing process.
So I like the first couple of passes of revisions when there's big changes
Hmm.
made and like I'm really thinking about, I don't need this whole little
Right, right.
scene. I don't need this character. Like big things are happening, but once it starts getting down to the nitty gritty, I don't enjoy it. So I've got to go start something new and then do the editing and do all that other stuff like the cover designer and the book description and all that kind of stuff. I'll, yeah, I can't just focus on that because I would just burn out. So I've got to have something new that I'm working on, like a first draft kind of place. So,
Well, I always start thinking about my next book before,
mm-hmm.
while I'm going through that process. And of course, with my editors and my cover designers, I have to book those guys
Yeah,
several
true.
months in advance. I don't have any, and once I've booked them, it's set in stone. I can't change it.
Mm,
The type of the editors I have and the cover designers I have won't they don't let you change it. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to be a week late" or something like that. You got to
yeah.
meet your deadline. So it's good for me. But I because it's so slow to start,
Mm.
for me it's really slow to start. And then midsummer is when I'm panicking.
Oh.
Like, oh my God, this isn't going to be a book. It's not even going to be a short story.
Well, your books are shorter than mine too, I think, aren't they?
They are. They
They're
are.
usually
The
long.
first book is pretty long, and then later books, because they're very action oriented,
Mm.
um, very fast moving. And I try to make them longer, but I really can't.
No
They
point in
just don't
forcing
want to
it.
be. Yeah,
Hmm.
no, no, they don't want to be
Mm.
longer. So
Yeah,
yeah, but I
well,
wish I
that's good.
could put them out faster.
Yeah, I wish I could do that too, but I can't.
We
I
all
only
work at
write.
our own pace. I am
Yeah.
often amazed, though, by some authors who write 2 or 3 books a year. And it's like,
Yeah,
how do
I
you
am
do
too.
that?
I don't know.
Wow. But I don't think I'd like it if I had to write that fast. I mean, it might be a little too forced, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't write many, many hours a day either. I
I
get
can't
really
either.
tired. I just get
Mm-hmm.
exhausted.
About 3 is probably my max.
Hmm. Yep, between
Four,
two and
four at the
three
most.
o'clock is I just have to go lay down.
I'm
Sometimes
usually done by noon or 1.
hmm
In the winter, I usually wrap up about 11:30, go or 12 o'clock, go for a walk. In the summer, I have to go for walks and do anything outside early in the morning. And then, so yeah. So sometimes I do more stuff in the afternoon in the summer because there's nothing to do other than
mm.
sit inside and try to stay cool.
Yeah, that's ideal writing time.
Yeah. Or even working on, I don't know, writing a blog. Or yesterday, I spent
Hmm.
2 hours messing around with my website.
I'm not good for much in the afternoon, so I try to get my writing done in the morning and get it done by 2 o'clock. There's always stuff that has to be done in the morning besides write that just can't be put off. But,
Oh, yeah.
I try to really focus on that and get that done so that by, I'll break for lunch and usually come back and work a little bit, but 2 o'clock that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes
Seems
I'll
like
just go for a walk
hmm
or, we just recently joined a gym. I go to Tai Chi, um, just to get away from it, and get my circulation going again.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been playing a lot of drums,
Oh,
which is nice. Banging
hmm
around on drums is a nice way to work off some energy.
sure.
All right. Well, it sounds like we had an eventful year, and it sounds like we got
Hmm.
plenty of stuff coming up in 2026.
Yes, indeed.
We'll have some more guests on the podcast. And yeah,
Talk about our new
hey,
projects some more.
yeah. Anything
Yeah,
left? Anything else?
can't think of anything.
All right. Me neither. Well, it was good to talk to you again.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.
Thanks for listening. You can find Johanna at johannawittenberg.com, where you'll find a free short story, a prequel to her Norse Queen series. And you can find me, K.S., at ksbarton.com, where you can also find a free short story from me, a prequel to my Norse family series. See you next time.